we've seen so many variations of TMNT over the years, and you can really feel Seth and Evan's hands all over this, and it really leans into the teenager aspect. So what stood out the most about this new take on the characters for you?
So many things on so many levels, not only the grassroots sort of feel going back to some of the most basic components of what, co-creator Peter Laird and I put in the original series, whether it be the kind of inexperienced, naive, weighted organic drawing style of what the characters look like, how they moved, this gritty sort of spatter is dirt is prevalent and an important part of the whole thing, to the attitudes and attention to the action sequence, action sequences, which was always important to me, but the humor aspect and paying attention to the family first aspect, because it was always a heart and soul of the concept. I feel was the family side of it, but having the right amount of humor. So I felt that you had this new approach. It was not, I would say it's a new approach, but it was just a very sincere and passionate approach from Jeff Rowe, say, especially, who came out of it as he grew up with it as a fan. Seth, he's a big comic geek like me, and I know he was a fan of the series. And so I feel like they took elements and things they loved about the series and about the concept from different, even turtle universes, and put them into this blender. But I think took it back to the basics and just nailed it on every level.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the family because I really liked what they did with Splinter. The origins are kind of changed from the comics a bit, but I thought it really fit the film well, and he had a really nice character arc. Jackie Chan's great throughout. So, how did you just feel about how they handled Splinter throughout this movie?
Perfect. It was, and to me, it was because the elements that Peter and I applied to the original concept were like Pat Morita sort of Karate Kid aspect, and Yoda, and it was this fatherly wise sage that had cared about his sons and his people, but also had this wisdom and advice to help them navigate and come into the world. And I feel like the aspect of that plus the goofiness, like my dad was kind of goofy in a lot of, I think, the dad jokes and the things, but I feel like the love is there, and the love comes through, when he has a little party for them with all the different Chris's with the little stand-up things, and just there's so many elements that was just very sincere and very endearing as a character, that a fatherly character that just loved his sons and wanted to protect them and overly protect them. And so and then the voice, Jackie, I'm a huge Jackie Chan fan, so to have voice a character that Peter and I created was just like, holy smokes, goosebumps.
That's awesome. And by the end, we get to see all the mutants kind of come together, and that includes Bebop and Rocksteady. We usually see them as the henchmen. So what did you like about seeing this other side of them, and then working with the turtles?
That was what was it was the creation of Bebop and Rocksteady and the different forms of the cartoon series and stuff. It was creating mutants specifically to be bad guys, to combat with the turtles and fight with the turtles. And that was more of an evolution out of what we did originally in the role-playing game, and then evolved into a much larger expansion in the cartoon series. But I love that they had this idea that they were born at the same time, and that moment when the turtles see the other mutants and go, there's more of us, we're not alone. I thought that was so incredibly clever, and it just really created a bond to those characters in a way that I had never thought of, and I thought was a totally unique and original idea of them and on their own. So I think that just that shared origin was fantastic, and then it also gives you a nice foundation to move things on from there, and tell other stories, not only within that context, but what you could do with them down the road, which is fantastic as well.
And then my last question for you, a Mutant Mayhem video game was just announced today, and games have been a huge part of TMNT's legacy. Can you speak to this, the franchise being able to work, throughout all kinds of different mediums, and what all the video games have meant to you?
Well, to me, it was from the very beginning, when we first started working with Nintendo, Konami, and on that very first game that I've never been able to beat, even back in the day, never got through the water level. But the fact that that was such a evolutionary, revolutionary part of technology, the video game, the console game, and what it meant to so many kids, and even the older kids that we were at the time, was an important part of the Turtles' history, and has been a constant throughout the Turtles' history. So when you have the opportunity to develop a unique game based on not only on Mutant Mayhem, but also with Paramount and Nickelodeon, we're developing a game for the Last Ronin comic series, which is a older audience graphic novel that I've been working on. I've done with IDW and Nickelodeon. So I love that you can have that environment play and work to this audience as well. It's been part of the history since the beginning.